Hello, this is BJ from Hearns, and I'm going to continue my tutorial series on the Scale75 Artist range of acrylic paints. Now, you've already seen me go through the basic set, and I've got an extra one that I've added now, which is the green, but pretty much the basic set is the primary colors, so you get your red, your blue, your yellow, and then you've got your tones of your white and your black, and they'll be able to give you all your different colors. Added in the green here, there's also the brown included, so that'll give you your earth tones, and then a green is something that you could easily add, and then that'll help you get all your military colors. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to explain how to airbrush the Scale75 Artist range. Now, this is showing the versatility of this particular paint system. As you've probably seen from earlier tutorials, it's a very thick, highly pigmented paint. Comes out as a paste out of the tube, and I'll show you how I go about thinning it and then airbrushing this particular paint. So let's go with the red here. Okay, so we'll just unscrew it and we'll get a dollop, and I'll pop it in my little mixing cup here. Okay, so I'll squeeze a little and I'll see if you can see it just popping out there. See how it's coming out there? And it's coming out quite straight up. I mean, that's very, very thick. It's coming out like toothpaste. Now we'll just add this here. So the hardest thing about mixing paints for airbrushing, I find, is that people will say, oh, mix 20%, 30%, 40% of thinner. Well, it doesn't quite work like that with everything, because everything actually has a different consistency to start with. So there's different brands, there's different pigments, and they will react differently. So I'll show you how I judge by eye the consistency that I know will work. So as I've discussed on previous times, there's the talk about milk consistency. Now, milk consistency, I think it's really good for most people to picture. May not make sense to a lot of people because I'm not spraying milk, but basically what you want is you want a consistency that's not so thin that it's like water, and you want it slightly thicker so it's more like milk. So milk, definitely for most people, will be able to notice that it's not as thin as water. And then obviously anything thicker than that is going to be hard to spray. Now, there's a lot of leeway in spraying. So you may be a little bit thinner, you'll still spray. The only disadvantage is it's going to be highly diluted, and if you spray too much, it'll drip. If you've got it too thick, it'll probably have very, very good coverage, but it may not give you a very good finish, because being very thick, it could give you orange peel, or it may just be too heavy and cover up all your detail. So you'll see here, I've just got it inside my little container there. It's just a dollop. So this is going to be very different to any modeling paint because it is so thick. There's no other modeling paint like this. This is very much an artist style. So it comes out very chunky, super infused with pigments. So it's a very, very dense opaque paint. And then what you'll need is this particular thinner for Scale75. So this thinner is designed specifically for airbrushing. The advantage of it is it comes with pre-mixed additives. So it's got retarder mixed in. The retarder is going to slow down the drying time, which means as it's spraying on, it'll have time to, rather than flash off and dry off as it touches, it'll be able to sit and then level itself as well. Other advantage is it's also got flow improvers added. So the flow improver is going to help the paint go through the airbrush without drying on the tip. So that can be a problem with acrylic paints. As they dry on the tip, it gets blocked and then it starts spitting. Okay, so let's see. So I've shown you already, I've got my little dollop of paint. I've got the red in there, so hopefully that's a lot easier to see. We've got our thinners, so we'll just crack this open. Now the thinners have got a dropper type tip, so that gives you a lot of control. So you can sort of do splashes at a time. So what we'll do, now looking at how thick this paint is, I would try to use the same amount that is in there. And that's just by eye. So I'm looking at a little dollop there. I'm thinking, oh, it's probably going to be a couple or 3 splashes or so. So let's just do 3 splashes. So I've got 3 splashes in there. Now looking at that, that's probably still going to be too thick, but I won't know until I mix it up. So I just get a brush here. I just push it into the thinner. And I'll start mixing it up. Okay, So I've got a really dense looking colour there. Now it's hanging onto the brush quite well. One of the other tricks to judge is it's called the drip test. So you'll use a stick. So unfortunately I don't have a stick handy on me. Now if you'll put a stick in here, what you want is, you don't want the paint flowing off. We'll see here, it'll create a drip. So it's actually hanging on a long time, which is indicating that it's really thick, but it is falling a ball, so it's almost ready to drip. So if anything, you see the drip just went in there. If anything, that's still a bit thick for my liking. So as I look at it, it's looking less like milk. Not sure you can see the flow there. See how it's sort of grabbing hold and just swirling around? It's probably like a really thin cream. So probably do with a couple of more dashes. I'll mix it again. Have another look. All right, so here we go. We've got our drip forming. It's not working too well in this situation because I've got a brush here. If it was a stick, it wouldn't be hanging onto the bristles. So let's see. No, it's not liking it. All right, so in that circumstance, without the stick, I'll just look at it more carefully. Look at the way that it holds on the side of the cup. And to me, that's still a bit thick. Just watching the way it flows. Okay, let's do another couple of dashes. Okay, so far, I've probably added about 9-10 dashes of thinner. Now of course, having the consistency so different, it's very difficult to say, yeah, let's do 20%, because at the moment I would not know what sort of percentage has been added in here. And that's why it's important to look and get to use, understand by feel what you think is going to work. Okay, so it's a lot looser now. Put a drop on the side, it's actually flowing down the side of the container. And I think that's ready to try spraying. Okay, so it's not going to harm anything by trying to spray now. It is a sprayable consistency, and what we can tell is, as we spray it, if it's not giving us the smooth finish that we're after, then we'll modify it. So either make it thicker or we'll make it thinner to suit. All right, so I'm going to pour some of that into my airbrush. So you see it going in now. All right, so that's just a little bit there. That's enough to try. Now my compressor is already on. It's already charged, ready to go. So let's give it a go on a bit of paper and we'll see what it's like. Okay, that's spraying quite well. It's actually, I don't think I've got this adjusted correctly because it's spraying a lot out. This needle is probably not homed in properly. No, not at all. Okay. Let's try that again. All right, so that's better. So I've got a bit of control here. Let's see how fine this line is. Then as I pull it back with more pressure, okay, so that's definitely sprayable. So what have I learnt just by spraying it like this? Okay, so I can see a lot of spotting around the edges, so atomization is not that fine. So that means I could go thinner. Looking at the line I've done, the really fine one, that one is probably a little bit rough around the edges, so that could do with a bit of thinning as well. So how about we'll thin it a little bit more and we'll compare the result to what I just did there. So let's put another, let's do 1, 2, 3 more dashes. So look at it. Yep, okay, so that's 3 more dashes in. Mix it up a bit. All right, let me just, I think I still got a little bit of paint in here, which is from before. If not, we'll just clear it off. Yeah. Okay, so airbrush is clear now, I think. All right, we'll pour in some of this fresh, thinner paint. All right, now let's try it from this side. Oop. Okay, so immediately I can feel that this particular line is under a lot more control. But then with the atomization, it's much smoother along the edges. So there you go. Now this is at a stage where I'll be very happy to spray something with it. So that's how easy it is just to play around with the mixing of the paint. So let's just do this. Pour some in here and I'll actually start spraying a piece of plastic. Okay, so over here, so I've got a piece of plastic here which I've already pre-primed. Oop. So I've got this here. Now I'll just prime it with some grey primer. So what it's going to do is it's going to give me a very, just switch that off. This will give me a nice key for the paint to hold onto. Now if I didn't prime this, what's going to happen is it may start dripping a lot easier. So just going to help with the adhesion. Alright, so let's give this a go. Switch this on again. Alright, start this off. Alright. Okay, so that's the first coat. Now what's always going to happen is with the first coat, it's going to look very light. Now it's important to build up the coat slowly. So it's good in a couple of ways because this will give you more control of the graduation. It also gives you a lot more control in getting an even coat. So this is the first lot. So it's going to take a little bit to dry, but all right, let's just try and rush it and we'll give it another go. Okay, now let's let it dry for a bit. It's probably a good idea if I actually switched on this booth, just to help suck out some of the dust. So at the moment what you see is, because it is quite thin, it's actually starting to bead on the surface, which is not a totally bad thing. It just means that I've probably hit it a bit hard because I've been trying to rush this demonstration. But when this dries, it'll level off. But then with the subsequent coats that we put onto it, it's going to even off a lot more. But that's going to take a little bit, so we'll let it dry for a sec. I'll stick it in here, that'll help it dry. And we'll come back in a moment. Okay, just got that. Alright, so it's still a little bit wet. Alright, let's just give it another go and see what happens. Okay, so still definitely needs more time to dry, so perhaps if I let this dry for a bit more and we'll come back to it. But already you can see how the colour is becoming much more saturated. And just how far a little bit of paint can go, because that was only from one single little dollop. Okay, so let's pop it in here. We'll be back in a moment. All right, so I'm back now, and I've actually just accelerated the drying time with a heat gun on this, or a hairdryer. So just for interest of the demonstration, just so I can show you with the coats how it's going to end up with a really nice finish. Okay, so it's going to look patchy now because I rushed a bit in the beginning, but let's continue on. Now I won't use the spray booth on because it ended up being a bit noisy, so let's just continue on here. Okay, so just applying it, you'll see it's getting richer and richer. Okay, so you can see that's pretty even. Now, I've got my heat gun ready here. Let's just do the quick force dry. I mean, obviously you prefer it to dry naturally. But if you're in a rush, I mean, this is still a technique that you can use. And it's something that I do use sometimes when I've got deadlines to meet. Okay, so it's there, and I think just another coat would probably do that pretty well. Okay, all right, let's go for one more coat. Oh, and I'm out of paint. Let's do this. All right, so it's probably just enough paint to do one more coat here. Okay, and so that's it. That's my final coat. All right, let's do a bit more accelerated drying. Okay, that's it. Okay, so here you go. This is the airbrush result. It's had a little bit of help from heat gun, but you can see how dense the color is. This is all the paint I've used now was only from that single dollop that I started at the very, very beginning with a bit of thinner. So it was probably, what was it? 9 to 10 dashes of thinner. Just mixed down by eye, so you wanted to milk in consistency. This is 4 or 5 coats. As you see, super, super matte finish, dead flat. If you do want a gloss finish, you can quite easily put a quality gloss over the top. Okay, so this is just showing you how easy and how far one of these tubes will go. So super dense. You start off with thin coats, build up the layers, and then you get the dense pigment like this. Okay, so since we've done that, let me quickly show you how to clean up. So we've still got a bit of paint in here, which will just spray out. So let's just, let's get this one. It's just a bit of rag, just spray it all out. Okay, so rather than using the airbrush thinner, just keep that for actually mixing down the paint. To clean up, all you need is regular water. So I've got some tap water just in this little container. Just pour a little bit inside the cup. We use a brush we used before. Just brush it all the way around. And this is the beauty of using these artist colors. So you'll notice that I was spraying without the spray booth because there's no smell as such to bother. Pour that in there. Okay, so I've just rinsed out the inside with some water. We'll spray the excess out here. You can see how it's already diluted. Okay, next thing to do would be, I'm just going to get this and I'm just going to dry the inside and wipe it down. Okay, so it's gotten most of it out. Still a bit on the side here. There we go. All right, and then you just do some more flushes. Now this is going to get rid of the excess that's in the nozzle. And as you can see, the water is coming out clean now. Okay, and that's practically clean. Okay, so we've got a cup clean, the nozzle is clean, the tip is still dirty though, so we'll clean that up in a sec. So next step, take the needle out. So just gently pull it out. So we're going to give that a wipe down and then take off the end cap. All right, so you got the nozzle here, so that's already clean. You can see that's clean. They'll be clean on the inside as well because it's been flushed. I'll leave that here. And you see this section here. So we'll just get some water in here, brush it down. Okay, a little bit on the corner here. Just pop that paper in, so you can use paper or a rag. Just wipe out all the excess. Okay, a bit more clean stuff here. Oop. Don't want to lose that. Okay, just have a quick look. Looks pretty good. Alright, so that's clean, and then the needle. So with this, which is already wet, we'll just wipe this down. Always go from the back to the front so you don't bend the needle. So you see that's all come off the needle itself, so it's clean, and then basically we just reassemble. So nozzle goes back, nozzle cover goes on, needle gently guide it in, don't want to bend it. It goes in, home it in on the end, just touch fit, tighten it up, make sure this is all operating, it feels good, there's nothing tight. End cap back on. Okay, so that's all done. That's ready for your next session. Okay, so there you go. So there's the Artist 75 demonstration of how easy it is to airbrush. My method of mixing it to an airbrush ball consistency, and basically how to apply. So what to look out for, what does a thick mix look like, what does a thin mix look like, and basically how it ends up coming out. It's superb, even finish, incredibly intense color, and just mix down with the airbrush thinner, the paint for airbrushing itself, and then cleaning up, just use regular tap water. Easy as that.